What's going on, fam? Welcome back to the channel. This is the 1 month review of the CTR360 Maestri 3 in this absolute bumblebee color. I'm gonna leave all of the ratings right here for those of you who want a quick fix of everything that I'm gonna go over in this video, but let's first talk about the sole plate. Now, the sole plate of the CTR360 Maestri 3 is pretty good from today's standards. By the way, that's how I'm gonna be rating these things compared to current boots on the market, things that are currently out as opposed to what they are back in the day. This boot was released predominantly, in my opinion, as a precursor to the Tiempo 10, which is very similar to Kangolite material. It's a synthetic leather, and so they're basically saying with this football boot, we're gonna re-release this so that you guys are happy with synthetic leather and you are okay with the Tiempo not being K leather. That's my opinion. You leave it down in the comment section below if you wanna argue, but that's what I think about this. This sole plate is actually decent. I don't think it's top, but it is totally fine. Most of these studs are these little rectangles or kind of half moon studs. They do a decent amount of, decent job in gripping into the ground on AG and FG surfaces. So that has been really nice to see, especially from how many years ago these were produced. And as far as responsiveness to the sole plate goes as well, decent amount of rigidity here through the midfoot, and there's a good amount of flex. I wouldn't say it's anything to write home about. I don't think it's anything close to any of the speed boots on the market, or even something like an Asics DS-Lite X-Fly 5, which is especially the special edition version, which is a very similar material to this. I think this sole plate is just about average, so for me this is going to get a 7 out of 10. The heel area of the CTR is really nice, actually. I love the way this suede heel liner really wraps your foot well. I know that on the recent models of the Phantom Luna, Phantom GX, and Tiempo 10 now, they've removed the internal heel counter in this middle, so they basically cut it out so that there's just a little section here and a little section there, and then you can really push it down. But as you can see, there is still an internal heel counter. It just only goes about halfway up. So because I'm fairly certain this is a one-to-one remake, that's what the originals had as well. And I would say these fit most foot types, and they really do a nice job of wrapping your foot, especially with this micro suede liner. Super comfortable straight out of the box. This gives me zero slippage either rotationally or up and down, so that's a huge sign as far as lockdown goes. But for the heel area, this is a really nice, comfortable fit. I've had zero issues. Most of the time when I get issues in the heel area, it's here on the lateral and medial side on the lower parts of that heel area, so I get kind of blood blisters and stuff in those areas if there is any slippage. With these, no issues. So for me, this is a 9 out of 10 heel area. The upper on this football boot is really nice, although I'm gonna knock it down for a few reasons. One of the things that I don't really like is some of the ways that the fit sort of feels a little awkward in certain places for me, right around the outside of the ankle, and then this upper just feels a little bit disconnected to the ball for me compared to some of the modern things, especially what this boot sort of encouraged with the Tiempo 10. The Tiempo 10 feels way more barefoot than this feels. Even the GX feels a little bit more barefoot than this boot, and I think I forgot in a lot of ways what this football boot brought to the table as far as how padded it was. And for me, I just think boots have gotten lighter, thinner, and they really do feel a little bit more connected to the ball. That's not a bad thing. If you are somebody who loved this boot for that reason and you like thicker uppers, this will be a fantastic pickup for you. But as far as this upper goes, it really is a little bit more thick than what I'm looking for. But this Kangolite material is super soft. It is super plush. So for me, it's gonna get a average rating of 7.5 out of 10. Lockdown of the CTR is average, I would say. There's nothing really to write home about. They didn't add any flywire cables to it at the time where there were other boots on the market that did have those. And so for me, the lockdown is fine. It's a little bit slippy every once in a while. You get a little bit of lateral rollover, lateral slippage back and forth this way when you're cutting really hard, at least for me. And I did make sure that I got the correct size, order half a size up, by the way. So these are a 9.5 US, and so I go half a size up to get the best fit. These tended to fit just a quarter size to a half size small, so you get a little bit extra space there. But for me, again, lockdown and the way that this boot fits and feels when you're trying to get kind of the higher echelons of performance, I just don't think they hold up as well to what's currently on the market, and especially some of the other Nike boots that are on the market now have phenomenal lockdown. So that's something that's a little more noticeable, I would say, than some of the other boots on the market. So for me, this is gonna get a 7.5 out of 10. Break-in time for this football boot is absolutely fantastic. I had literally zero issues. There was a tiny bit of hot spot right here on the outside, which is very normal for me. But for most foot types, these are gonna be absolutely fantastic. I have 2 other teammates who managed to get their hands on a pair of these when they did do the re-release, and they fit both of those players perfectly straight out of the box. All 3 of us were able to jump into training sessions, like a full pro training session, straight away with our team with no issues with break-in, didn't have to unlace the boots, didn't have to do anything, take them off or anything during the session, which is a really good sign. So I think for most people, the break-in time, which again, for a synthetic leather upper, is pretty good. So for me, this is gonna get an 8.5 out of 10 for break-in time. Durability and build quality of these has been pretty fantastic, to be honest. I haven't managed to wear them as much as I probably wanted to, just because of the way that the upper feels. It feels a little bit disconnected compared to what I want. But for me, the durability has been really good. The other players, as I mentioned before, who have these have had really no issues. There's been a little bit of sole separation on the AG surfaces. To be fair, the field that we play on here in Rochester, not this particular one, but the one we train on for games and have our matches in, is really, it's a little bit older, so it gets super, like, you beat the crap out of football boots on that pitch. And so I think from that perspective, these still are gonna get a good mark, because I think if you're playing on natural grass pitches like the one behind me, or better turf fields like the one here, you're gonna have really no issues with these, and these will definitely last just about as long, or even a little bit longer, than a lot of the other boots on the market that tend to get sole separation and some upper splitting pretty early on in their wear time period. This one just feels really robust and is built really nicely. So for me, this is gonna get an 8 out of 10. Shape and fit for the CTR Maestri 3 is fine. Again, it's gonna fit some people perfectly, but this is more of a subjective review of what I really appreciate in football boots. The shape of this football boot is just a little bit awkward for me. I still have a little bit of extra space on the end. I know that I said I went half a size up, and you guys sometimes in the comments are like, well, you should have gone a half size down. The half size up is actually the appropriate sizing for this football boot, as well as the Magista Obra and a couple others from the Nike brand over the course of the last couple of years. But the sizing of this football boot is very good. And the shape and fit just kind of irks me a little bit here on the side. It is a little bit bulbous on kind of the edge of that ankle area, and I just don't think it does a good job of all the way wrapping your foot. I think right here, if they were to put a runner's knot, so an extra loop right in that area, and then on the other side right in that area here, it actually, I think, would fix a lot of the issues that I have with the shape and the fit as I'm trying to break these in. But because the lacing system is honestly pretty small compared to a lot of modern football boots, it's just not gonna get quite the rating that I want it to. And for me, the shape and the fit here is a 7 out of 10. Okay, competition for this football boot is an interesting one. So the way that I'm gonna categorize this football boot is I'm gonna categorize it in which football boots on the market have synthetic leather. So materials like Kangalite, materials like the new Fly Touch Plus, materials like ASICS Special Edition X-Fly 5. So you've got the Tiempo Legend 10, you've got the Predator Accuracy lines, the .1s and the pluses. You've got the, I said Tiempo Legend 10 already. You've got the ASICS DS Lite X-Fly 5 Special Edition, so that's a fake leather or a synthetic leather. And then you've got the Puma King Ultimate, which is their K Better, I believe it's called, and that's also a synthetic leather. As far as the competition goes, there's a couple different ways that you can go about this, particularly because if you compare this directly with the Puma King Ultimate, the Puma King Ultimate is super thin, really raw feeling, feels very much like Vapors of old, like some of those synthetic leather feeling Vapors, whereas this is a much more padded feel, and it's very much like a control and sort of glide through the midfield type style of football boot. So it kind of depends on what you want in particular. For me, these are gonna fall above the King just because of the shape and the fit, above the Predator because I don't really like the Predator. But I would say for me, the upper of the Tiempo Legend 10 is awesome, and the upper of the ASICS DS Lite X-Fly 5 is exceptional. So I think for me, this is gonna be right in the middle of the pack. There's gonna be 2 above it and 2 below it for where this sits in the competition for me. Overall performance of this football boot is decent. I think the CTR360 Maestri actually stands up pretty well to modern standards. Again, I have certain issues with some of the lockdown and the shape of this football boot and all that stuff. I do really like them, and for nostalgic purposes, they're an awesome pair of football boots, and I love them for that reason. But from an objective performance standpoint, I think that the sort of these pass pads that you get here don't really do a ton for you, and it's just a little bit of an awkward shape for my foot. And so for me, the overall performance of this football boot is gonna get a 8 out of 10. Pretty good, honestly, but it's just not quite what I'm looking for as far as like a match boot or something that I wear on a normal game day basis, but these are definitely a training boot for me. All right, overall rating is gonna be really difficult for me, and the rating is a little bit weird, particularly because this football boot has so much nostalgia behind it. I wore this football boot in high school and I loved it. I wore a couple different colorways. As you guys can see, the original initial reaction review to that one to look at the ones that I wore back then, but these are really nice and I like them. They're super comfortable, even if the shape doesn't really fit perfectly for what I'm looking for. And for me, this football boot overall rating is gonna get a 7.5 out of 10. I know that's a little bit lower than some of you guys probably wanted to hear, but 7.5 out of 10. I just can't get over some of the more modern things that have happened in football boots since this football boot came out. And I really do think that this does such a fantastic job at a lot of things, just not enough for me to give this the nod as like one of the GOAT boots. This is a fantastic football boot. I'm so glad to be able to wear it on a consistent basis in training. But again, it's just not gonna quite hit that upper echelon of a tier lists for me. So 7.5 out of 10 for the CTR360. You guys can go in the comment section below, start roasting me now if you want to. That's totally fine. That's my subjective opinion on these football boots. They're good, but again, football boot technology has gotten better in my opinion, and compare this to something of a similar era like the Hypervenom 3, and for me, the Hypervenom 3 just knocks this out of the park like by a long shot. I know those came a little bit after this, but you get the idea, right? So 7.5 out of 10. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys want to see the original review of this, hit that icon right there, and as always, be awesome, take care. I'll see you guys in the next video.